guys know, this is my very broken Audi TT. And in the last video, we pulled out this motor, and that's because this cylinder head is junk due to the timing belt snapping. And this is a new motor that I just picked up for $1,200. But before I start putting all the new components on here, I do want to bore scope this. So this is the new motor. I'm gonna start by taking out the coil packs and spark plugs, and then we're gonna bore scope this thing and make sure that there's no scoring in there or any damage. They already took out the spark plug, so either they already bore scoped it and gave it the okay. Let's check the bores, see if this is good. So far, everything is looking good. We're gonna pretty much give this motor a complete refresh. This is an automatic. This one is for a manual transmission. So we're gonna have to swap this flywheel over to this one. There's also some other things that need to be done. Now that we have the plate off, we can start by replacing this rear main seal. You see, the rear main seal is a common fault point, as you can see right here with the oil leak. So it's a very good idea to change out the rear main seal. So I started removing the 10mm bolts that hold this thing together. With the rear main seal removed, I started cleaning off all the old RTV. You just put a little thin bead of RTV on the bottom part of it, and then slide on the new rear main seal. The rear main seal comes with this really cool, alignment tool, so you know it goes in the right spot. And then lightly tap on the rear main seal around so it seats on there properly. And then started tightening up all the 10mm bolts, making sure that, of course, I do it in a cross pattern, and then torque them all to spec. Now that we got the rear main seal installed and torqued to spec, we can start working on taking that flywheel off to transfer over to this. So let's get this motor sitting a little bit different. With the clutch out of the way, I can get to the flywheel bolts, and I had to use, breaker bar because they're on there really tight. With the flywheel removed, it's time to swap it over to the new motor that was, automatic. But now, it's gonna be manual. With the clutch swapped over, I had to get, new flywheel bolts because they're a one-time use. So I started tightening down the flywheel bolts in a cross pattern, of course, and then torque those to spec as well. We have a slight problem, but I think I have a solution for that problem. See, this is the alignment tool for the clutch, and it doesn't sit in there very well. But the new clutch came with the pilot bearing, which this is the old motor and there's no pilot bearing, so I'm thinking then this clutch tool or the alignment tool will fit, and then we'll be able to get the clutch in. I used the alignment tool to lightly tap on the pilot bearing to get it started, and then I switched over to the socket to make sure that it was nice and snug in there. And what do you know? It worked. We got the clutch lined up, and then I was able to put on the clutch basket. Now with the clutch basket all lined up, I was able to start tightening down the bolts, and of course, as you guys know, torquing everything to spec. Rear main done and the clutch installed, we can start taking the timing, tensioner, and everything off from this motor and start swapping it over there. But we're gonna have to throw it on the engine stand first, so let's throw this thing on an engine stand. Unfortunately, my engine stand is not long enough. So I'm gonna readjust this motor. We can start taking off things like the timing cover and everything. You guys seen me do this before. I'm marked up this old timing belt in multiple spots to make sure the new timing belt was gonna line up. Then I removed the water pump and reinstalled the new water pump. In order to get the new timing belt on, I had to take this little bolt and stick it into the tensioner to relieve tension so it would slide over the water pump. And then from there, I could relieve the bolt that I just put in to relieve tension, and the car should be all in time. Now that I have everything timed up, it's time to throw all the engine covers back on. Now that we got everything complete on the front of that and timing belt, I think it's about time to hook up this transmission. But I think first, I'm gonna hook up this throwout bearing because I do have a new throwout bearing. So I'm gonna put that in right now. To replace this throwout bearing, there are these 4 8mm bolts, and after the 8mm bolts, it just slides right off and then slides right back on. Now, I did some adjustment on this motor and did hook up the hoist, but I'm thinking it's time to make this transmission meet the motor. So let's try to do this. I'm hoping I can do this right here, but it might turn out to be difficult. So let's, make the transmission meet the motor. Now, in order for the transmission to meet the motor, you do have to remove this drive unit, which are these 4 Allen key bolts. Then you have to use this long Allen wrench to stick down in there so you can loosen up the bolt so the whole drive unit will come out. And then the unit should just pry away. Now that we have the drive unit disconnected from the transmission, now it's time to bolt the transmission to the engine. So I slid the transmission over to the motor, lightly jacking it up, making sure it aligns, and I just put a couple bolts in there to hold the transmission to the motor. With the transmission to the motor, then you can throw back on the drive unit, which is the same process. You put the 4 Allen wrench bolts back in there, and then the long bolt with the long Allen wrench. We have the motor, transmission, and drivetrain all set. I think it's time to put this motor in the car because let's just say that this was a lot of work to get this done, and I'm super excited, so let's get this motor in the car. We got the motor sitting right here hanging in the air. Oh, this is such an exciting moment. I'm super excited about this. Let's get this motor in this car. My dolly, the wheel is a little wore down on there, so it made it quite difficult to get this motor over here. I slowly adjusted the motor up and down just to make sure that we didn't damage anything because, well, this was a lot of work to get the motor to this point that I did not want to damage anything else. I had the motor in place, I was able to connect the transmission mount. Once I had the transmission mount in, I was able to push on the motor to get the engine mount in, and we did it! The motor is installed. It is in there, it is secure. I'm super pumped about this. I mean, I've never been so excited in my life. This was a ton of work. See, motor is secure and is not gonna go anywhere. Now, we have to figure out that mess. But we're not gonna be figuring it out in this episode. Sorry, unfortunately. It's gonna have to wait for the next one so we can see if this motor is gonna start. But as always, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you wanna see more of the TT build, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you wanna see if this thing is gonna start and I did everything correctly, yeah, there's a button down there. Hit it. This video is over, and peace.